I'm Matt Beagle, and this is your Strat-O-Matic Strategy of the Month. It's the off season now, so this month we're going to talk about activities you can do to prepare for your next Strat-O-Matic season. Some leagues, like one I'm in, draft as early as mid-November, whereas other leagues will wait till January, February, March. But for those of you who draft early, projecting the cards is a key part of planning your team for next year. We don't have the ratings till usually January, so it's going to be up to our mathematical skills to try to make the best estimate as to what our cards will look like so we can judge whether our team will compete, not compete, which players we want to remain on our team, which players we want to trade. So this is a quick way, well, not really quick, but a detailed way to try to estimate what your card will look like in your Strat-O-Matic card value. The first thing you need is a good source of lefty-righty splits. Unless you play the basic version, most of us play advanced, you want to know how a guy's card looks like both versus left-handers and right-handers. So the key is to find a source for those splits. You can go to places like Yahoo Sports, USA Today, or you can get Bill James' handbook every year that has them. The handbook is just about ready to be released here in November, but if you don't have that, you have plenty of websites to go to. But the key is you need this year's stats and last year's. While ballpark factors change a little bit, they're usually within some range of reason, and that's going to be one of your keys for projecting your cards. So the first thing you want is your lefty-righty stats, and you want, of course, average, on base, and slugging. And that equates to hits, right, walk chances, and then total base chances. It's not a perfect corollary, and each park is different, especially for left and right-handed batters. You have ballpark single factors to take into account, you have home run factors to take into account, but we can break this down into something a little simpler. Once you have those numbers, there's a key secret statistic that I've found really helps me project cards more accurately, and that's the home run ratio. You want to figure out how many home runs per batter for a pitcher or how many home runs per at bat your player gets, and that will really skew his card, because remember, if a guy has 8 diamonds, those could be 8 home run chances in something like Colorado or 8 outs in target field, for example. So you really have to pay attention to those home run chances because they really alter your card. Sometimes people just put them off to the side and forget about them and forget to factor those in, but those really change the hit, on base, and walk chances on a card. So you've got to look at the home run ratio. That's the key when you're projecting someone's card out because it affects the card in so many ways. For hitters, that's easy, home runs divided by at-bats, whether it's versus a lefty or righty. But for a pitcher, you got to make sure you're getting a statistical source that will give you how many at-bats they got. You can't just take the innings and multiply by 3. If you do that, you're going to have that in hits, walks, all different kinds of plate appearances. So you want to look at how many at-bats they had versus lefty or righty hitters if it's a pitcher. Once you've figured out their splits for this year, you want to go compare for the same team last year. The same team because it's going to have the similar ballpark factor and generally similar fielding ratings. Remember, if a pitcher has poor fielders behind him, those are more hits he's giving up because of the fielding rating, and therefore his pitching card will be better. The converse is also true. If I've got Brandon Phillips and Troy Tulowitzki up the middle behind me with a Gold Glove center fielder, then my pitcher is not going to give up as many hits on the fielding chart, and therefore he'll have a few more hits on his card than another pitcher with the same stats. So you want to hopefully that team will be a similar fielding team, and the best way to do that again is to compare this year's Reds versus last year's Reds, for example. So once you've got those stats laid out, this year's versus last year's, you start to figure out, you want to find somebody who had a similar stat. So pull out your Strat ratings book from a past year, the more current the better, and try to find someone who had similar stats to see what their card looks like. So if you find a guy that hit 295 with a low on base percentage, 333, you want to try to find someone that has that similar stats. But before you use those averages, look for that home run ratio. Find someone, figure out how many diamonds you think that guy might get, and then look at somebody's card from last year to see how close you are. That home run ratio is so key. The years I did it and I wasn't as accurate, it was because I wasn't factoring that home run ratio strong enough. I recommend doing that first. That's your key for projecting Strat-O-Matic cards. We'll do a second blog that'll get into even more detail. I'm Matt Beagle for Strat-O-Matic.